The one thing I like about Cochise College and the community college level is that you meet people from a wide range of age groups and backgrounds.
Welcome to Story Power, a bi-monthly podcast where my guests and I geek out about the stories we are passionate about in all different genres, styles, and formats. And we'll give a few recommendations to you, our listeners. Beware, possible spoilers ahead. My name is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden, and I started this podcast during the COVID-19 pandemic. As I watched the reaction of my social media circle, I noticed that many people turned to stories for comfort and help in making sense of the craziness going on around them. And as all good stories do, the world got even crazier. But, as Neil Gaiman says, fairy tales are more than true not because they tell us that dragons exist, but because they tell us that dragons can be beaten. This is episode 17, and today my guest is Ken Davis. Ken, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Lucinda. It's great to be here.
Ken, I think you and I met at when you were doing 12th Night with Dave Dahl directing. Is that true?
Well, that's the first time we worked together, but actually when you mentioned that, I thought of the first time we actually met, which you may not remember, but you were rehearsing, now the name escapes me, but the first Shakespeare play you worked on, and I walked through the middle of your rehearsal.
That was Measure for Measure.
You were rehearsing outside, and you were sitting on one bench, and the walkway was, of course, separated you from the stage. And I didn't recognize what was happening, and I just walked right through twice. And the second time you asked me to not do that again.
And I don't remember that. I mean, I remember the person walking through, but I don't remember that it was you.
That was me.
That's so funny. Well, of course you would walk through because it was on the library steps outside, and
right.
We didn't have a set or anything. It was just tables and chairs. And
Sure. Yeah, the first time it should have dawned on me, but no, the second time I just blithely walked through, and it was fun. It was very funny.
That is funny. Well, I enjoyed working on 12th Night. So you had a big part in that play because you were...
Yeah, Dave gave me... Yes, I played Festi. And Dave also, so Festi, who, for those people who haven't seen the play, Festi is sort of the narrator and sort of guides the audience through the different scenes. And so I had that part to play, but and Festi also interjects himself in different scenes. And then Dave asked me to take over some stage managing responsibilities, which I had never done before. And it was a great learning experience for me. It was a big challenge to try and wrangle actors because they're not the most wrangleable people in the world.
I know. I've been the stage manager before.
Yeah, but it was a great fun and great to work with. The one thing I like about Cochise College and the community college level is that you meet people from a wide range of age groups and backgrounds. I'm retired from the Air Force. Aaron, who played Malavolio, is a government employee, I think. And then, Angie and the others, Melissa, they were mostly college-age students. But Imani was, former military. I think she was in the Army, if I remember right. I may be remembering that wrong. But I thought she was in the Army, and then she came back to go to school. So that's the part that I really love about working with Cochise College.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And let's see, we also had Barry Smith. Is that his name?
Right.
Yeah. So we had adults and, most of the ones that were the students were like second year students. So not first year students.
Right.
Yes, that was really a fun one. And David Featherston, basketball player turned actor, that was fun.
Yes, and I believe that was his first time acting, and he really took to it.
And well, it was for his first play. He had been in acting 1 and 2. So,
oh, I see.
Yeah, with Dave and me. You forgot to mention that you also played the guitar and sang in Twelfth Night.
Oh, that's right. I did. Dave asked me to learn several of the different songs, and I was very fortunate to be able to figure out how to play those songs. And we sang. Yeah, it was great. We sang with Barry. That was the first time that I ever sang with a backing tape. When Barry and I sang that song, Peace on Earth, the medley with David Bowie and Bing Crosby, I think they made it famous, I suppose.
Yeah, I loved that song. But all of the things that you did were great, and it enhanced the play so much, having the Christmas carols and the other songs that you guys sang, that you sang and that you and Barry sang.
Thank you for saying that. I certainly enjoyed doing it, and it's one thing that I've really begun to appreciate is adding music to a production. I love plays. I'm in a play now. We're rehearsing for See How They Run with the Sierra Vista Community Theater. But I really like adding music into a show. And I've been watching Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and they break into like 2 songs every episode, and it's really nice to kind of break up the monotony of just actors saying lines, and telling the story that way. Yeah. Adding songs to it helps to tell the story and convey it along too.
Yeah, well, years and years and years ago when I taught drama, I worked at Buena for a couple of years teaching drama, and the first play I did there was Our Town, and I did put some music underneath, not all of it, but at the end when they have the funeral. And so I had a little bit of music, but it was very, very soft underneath that last part of the play. And yeah, I kind of like having some music every once in a while, but I always think that the music is really important, especially when I'm watching television or a movie or something, because it helps the emotional part of it. And I guess that's why I put the music underneath that last funeral scene in Our Town.
Yeah, it definitely adds to and can build on the emotion that the director is trying to create in that particular scene. Absolutely. It's difficult to do in live theater, especially at the community theater level, because it's hard to find musicians who are willing to volunteer that kind of time. But it's worth it when we can get it. It's definitely worth it.
Mm-hmm. I think I had recorded music. But yes, that's true. And sometimes it's also hard to get the balance right because, I haven't seen all of the spaces that Sierra Vista Community Theater has, but that space that we saw you in the play in before COVID.
Lend Me a Tenor.
Lend Me a Tenor. Yes, right. If you had live musicians there playing, it would overpower all of your lines. You would not get the balance right. So,
yeah, absolutely, it would be very, very tricky in that space. Now they've moved to a different place in the mall. I believe it's the old Gap store, and it was the Jumping Castle or something. I can't remember the name, but so it's a little bit bigger. They can do a lot more things with the community theater part. They teach acting for children and stuff like that. But it is a challenge to get the sound balance right. Absolutely.
Yes. I did want to talk to you about music, because how often do you do concerts or anything like that, or play at any venues around town?
I used to. Before COVID, yeah. I would play at open mics, and I used to host this. It was a variety show of sorts. That we called it Open Stage Night, and it started in Bisbee. My good friend Ray and Gillis, they ran it for a while, and then and that's when I really started to perform regularly at this Open Stage Night. And you could do anything: dance, sing, recite, do a scene from a play. But then COVID kind of hit, and I haven't really played even the guitar. let alone play publicly since March of last year, which is kind of a bummer. But, once things open up and we have open mic nights and things like that, I'll get back to doing it. I enjoy it. I write some of my own. The songs that I write, they all try to tell a story. And because it's me, they all have some humor mixed in.
Yes. That's right. And you're a playwright too. And I would love to read more of your plays. That would be fun.
Thank you. Yeah, I wrote 3 plays based on a young woman named Wanda. And they are funny. I mean, and I'm saying that myself. I guess I should say they make me laugh. Every time I read them or think about them, they make me laugh. But what is truly special about that was I had a read through, and Dave Dahl was kind enough to offer up his home, and Barry Smith showed up, but we didn't have enough people to read through all the parts. So my mom actually took one of the parts. She was visiting from California. And so that night, I'm sitting there with 3 great actors and my mom, who's overcoming her inhibitions. She's never done anything like this before. And we just had a wonderful time reading that play and laughing at my silly jokes. And it was just a great experience. I'm grateful for all of them for being there for that.
Well, we might have to do one of your plays at the college if we can. I think that would be fun.
Well, thank you. Yeah, you absolutely. Anytime. I would love to see it. Now, I think I mentioned this before when we talked in 2018 or 2019. It's only a 4-person play, which is if anybody's writing plays out there, write in more characters than 4 because, high schools and colleges want to get as many people involved as possible. So, and then even if it's for a community theater kind of situation, if you only have 4 characters, that's a whole lot of lines to remember for each one of those, where if you have 12, you break up the number of lines a person has to memorize, which is a real challenge when someone's balancing work, life, and then a theater commitment.
Yes, really. So you're pretty committed to doing theater. How often do you do a play?
Well, I try to be always doing something with a play because I like getting out and meeting other people. We have a great cast with See How They Run, again, from all walks of life, which is fantastic. The last play I did, of course, was Lend Me a Tenor, but I plan on, with all things being equal and things going well, I plan on auditioning for a play, the next play that comes up in the area, so that I can keep busy. I'm single and my children are grown, and I work a pretty much Monday through Friday kind of shift. So the evenings can get quite boring. So I want to make sure that I'm out there, and I just love it. So, why am I not doing a play right now? There's no reason. So I get out there and do it.
Except you had to stop for a while because of COVID.
Yeah, I believe that was, there were some productions still going on, but for me, and that circumstance, I didn't audition for any plays until this one here. And it got to the point, to be perfectly honest, where my mental health was suffering. And I knew that, both, you have to find that balance between physical health and mental health. And so I just decided that I have to do it and face the risks, which, like I said, I live alone. I had a very restricted exposure to people. And so I just decided I needed to get out there and get back into the community and do my thing. I take precautions when I'm out there in the public.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wearing a mask, and I think it's the safe thing to do. Mm-hmm. I also take care of myself. I exercise and try to eat right and sleep as best as I can. Those are about the things I can do to minimize symptoms if I do get it. So,
right. Well, I'm hoping that everything goes well with that. And that sounds like a fun show. Isn't that Agatha Christie?
No, I forget the author. He's a male. He's a British author, Samuel French Publishing, but it is hilarious. It's a British farce. And the way I like to describe it, for those of you of a certain age, you'll remember Three's Company. And I like to describe it as a Three's Company episode. Lots of misunderstanding, lots of confusion, and a lot of action on stage, actually. This is the most active that I've had to be on a stage in as far as I can remember. and that's good. But it's hilarious. We have Kiri Miller playing the lead in Penelope Toop, and I play Clive, who is her old friend, and they both used to perform together. And then there's a mysterious man who makes an appearance and causes mischief. There's a great many of mistaken identity scenes, which are quite funny. And, this gives me an opportunity to just talk about the level of talent just here in what we like to think of as Little Sierra Vista. But we got a new arrival. His name's Mike, who stepped in to play Lionel when someone had to kind of step back from the play. And he's doing a great job. Kiri's doing a great job as Penelope. But we have Jennifer. I forget Jennifer's last name. She plays Miss Skillen. Vanessa does this Ida, the maid. Oh my gosh, she does this great accent. It was so much fun. I don't know. I could just go on and on. That's the crew. Scott Conklin does the crew. He's set and lights and sound. And we're getting some help from Buena students who I think are getting credit for helping us out, which is awesome because it's a win-win as far as I'm concerned. I don't know. It's just awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Because if they're not having shows, they have to get their credit somehow. Yeah,
I wouldn't know how they did it, but I'm just glad that they're there to help us out, and they seem to be having a good time. We got a great we've got a costume staff. We have a stage manager, Susie. Nate is the assistant director. I can't remember the last names. I'm lucky if I remember first names. But
well, who's the director?
Jeremy. I had never met him before, but he's really, really good.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he does a great job. This is heavy and blocking, when there's that kind of action. Mm-hmm. There's a fight scene and all that good stuff. But, it's just really good to and that's the thing, there's all these great directors that I've worked for, you and Dave and Tommy and Ken Barrett down in Tombstone. And we're all just in this little area. And it's just amazing to me that we can have all of this talent concentrated here. It's great.
Well, I have found that with writing too, and even music, that there's so many talented people. And it's probably like that everywhere. But, if you're not involved in theater or music or whatever, writing, you wouldn't know.
Right.
You wouldn't know about the talent. So because I haven't been to the open mic nights in quite a while, but man, some of the people that share their work are so talented. The open mic, I'm talking about the Writers Celebration open mic nights.
Oh, over there at Brewster's Coffee, is that where?
Used to be Broxton. I'm now, of course, they're doing it all online on Zoom. So I don't know if they'll return to Broxton when we open up again or not. Have you thought of publishing your plays?
Okay, so the Wanda series, as I like to call them, they're available on Amazon. So anybody could grab them, and I have instructions in there to talk to me about rights and all of that. And to be honest, the first people who would want to put it on would be very generous, I suppose, in the offer.
That's great. Well, we do want to start our club again. It's just that Dave is getting his master's and he's not teaching. I'm busy with my podcast and so on and so forth. So we're probably not going to start it again until Dave's mostly finished next fall with his coursework. And that's one of our goals, is to do plays.
Yeah, I know. There's this, and I'm gonna broach this with Sierra Vista Community Theater. Years ago, when I lived in Tucson, this had to be, 2000. I participated in an event called Play in a Day. And what they did was they got writers together, directors together, and actors together, and they chose props. They just dealt with the set that they had, whatever set that was, from the last play. Mm-hmm. And they chose some props from a prop pile, the audience helped, everybody picked it out kind of thing. And then the writers wrote a play that night, a one-act play that night. The directors, got the play, and actors auditioned. And then they chose their casts, and then they rehearsed during the day. And then that night we went into performance, and it was so much fun because, first of all, it's like all original material. The it pushed me as an actor to memorize my lines very quickly. And to my surprise, I did it. I was shocked that I could go off book on a one-act play, but that kind of compressed time frame really helped me just focus on what was important at the moment, and they turned it into a bit of a competition. And I'm not sure that would be the most productive, but that's what they did. And I was lucky enough to be chosen in the play that won the competition. So it was really a phenomenal experience.
I think it would be fun just to have the different plays and not have a competition, but have audience come and see the plays. And that sounds like a fun event. Yes,
it turned out to be great. And it's so easy to put on because you don't have to worry about sets and stuff. Like the writers can draw inspiration from the set and sort of put all of that together. And anyway, if they could do that at one of the breaks in between their plays or something, it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Or maybe during the summer, if they're not doing plays during the summer or something. Yeah, I love it. I love that idea. That sounds fun. Well, I did a play once with the musical company, and it was called Bateau de Mort. And it was on, I lived in Portland at the time, and the Columbia River had these river boats that would go up and down the river. And so it was on one of the river boats. The play was, there were scenes going on all over the riverboat. So the audience would just mosey around the riverboat and stop and watch one of the scenes, and then they'd mosey on to another. So they wouldn't necessarily see them in the order that they were in the play. Right. But eventually all the holes would be filled up. And of course, we had this really interesting little thing where a small boat, and I don't know the names of them, but a small boat came up to the side of the riverboat, and one of the actors got on to escape, to escape getting captured. And it was really fun. And I was the stage manager, actually, but one of the actors' father died 2 days before we opened. And so I got cast in her part for a couple of days while she was, attending the funeral and being with family. And so I had to carry the book around, and it was this huge book. And it was opening night, and the press was there. And so I was so nervous, and I should have known her lines because I'd been to every single rehearsal. But I was very nervous. And the other actors were so gracious. I would know some of the lines and then I would forget, and they'd help me out. And but that was a fun play. Actually, it was fun to stage manage that play.
Yeah. And, that's the other thing that I've found is how positive the environment is around here with regards to, the other actors and learning parts and just being able to work together. It's just a great environment to work in. That's for sure.
That's great. Well, I remember when the theater company came, the people came and they wanted to open it up and use spaces in the mall. Dave and I were really excited about that. And I am thinking that it's probably going to be really successful, even more successful when the pandemic is over and more people can go to the plays and that kind of thing. It just seems like they had a great business plan for the educational wing and doing the productions and
right, exactly. And what I think they're doing now, what I see them doing is really building a base for fans, and audiences who, and you have to build a reputation and of putting on quality plays for a period of time before people start saying, hey, let's go do that. We know that that's going to be good. They put time in their schedule,
Yeah.
And that's what I see them doing now. And I think they're doing a great job of it.
Well, that's exciting. So I also talk to people who are readers. Do you read any books, or do you like movies or television shows?
All of the above. So before we started the official part of the interview, I was talking about my podcast. I have a podcast called Ken Reads the Classics, and I started with an easy one. It just went smooth, and that was Moby Dick. But that was partly because I needed to do something creative during this COVID time, during this quarantine period. But I think it turned out pretty good. I have some loyal listeners. And anyway, so I finished Moby Dick, and then I started reading Treasure Island. And Treasure Island, a new episode drops every Sunday at 6 a.m. Arizona time. Mm-hmm. And we're right about in the middle of the book. But the good news is all of the previous episodes still exist, as the podcasts are. Mm-hmm. So anybody can pick up anywhere they want. And then the next book I'm going to read is Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. So as far as my reading, that's kind of what I do. I read out loud into a microphone, and it seems some people like to listen to it, and that's good.
So tell where your podcast is available.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. It's called Ken Reads the Classics. You can find it at anchor.fm, or you can actually just go to your podcast app and just type in Ken Reads the Classics. I know that it's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and there's several others. I think there's 7 or 8 different platforms that anchor.fm broadcasts the podcast.
How did you get hooked up with anchor.fm?
So I'm very cheap, right? And I looked up free podcasts, and Anchor.fm will host podcasts for free. And they also offer a mechanism by which you can get sponsors and you can get paid. And I have some money in my account from my podcast.
Cool.
Not the millions I thought I would get, but some money.
Well, yeah, I do mine through my website, and I have a donation thing at the bottom, but I haven't got any donations yet, and that's okay, because I've only been doing it since July, and it's only every other week. It's not every week like yours. So it takes a while to get an audience, I think.
Yes, it does. And that's actually the hardest thing because, I don't want to say this. I don't know. They're not everybody's bag. And then there are many, many podcasts out there. And so to stand out in the crowd, you either have to pay a lot of money to advertise, and this is more of a vanity project than anything else. Mm-hmm. There's no need to spend a lot of money on it. So, it's hard to stand out, and then to get the fan base built up, it's even trickier.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Well, I love that. So I'll have to go check that out.
Yeah, I recommend it. And the Treasure Island is really well done. I mean, I'm tooting my own horn, but, you start out with a great book. It's hard to go bad,
Yes.
go wrong.
Well, I've read Treasure Island, I think, but I don't think I know I never read Moby Dick. So I don't know how I missed reading it, because usually you have to read it in high school. But I went to 2 different high schools, and I went to 2 different junior highs, and so we moved a lot. So I think that's how I missed it. Because
I didn't read it in high school. That I can remember. And if I did, I probably just perused a chapter, perused the chapters just to get the idea and didn't read the whole book in its entirety, because it is a long, long book, 130,000 words or more.
Wow.
Many, many chapters. Mm-hmm. And it was quite a challenge just to get up and do it. But I have some loyal listeners, my mom being one of them, my aunts and uncles being others. And,
so they need to share it with other people so that you have more listeners. Yeah.
Right. But, Dave Dahl taught me a trick when we were rehearsing for 12th Night, and that was, dedicate the rehearsal, dedicate a performance to someone you know and love.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was a fantastic way to just up your game a little bit when you're feeling tired. You've been rehearsing all week and nerves are a little frayed. It's great to sit back and think, okay, this one's for my brother or my kids or something like that. It's nice. Good way to do that.
That's great. So you were about to tell us about a television show that you like.
Okay. So, I've already mentioned Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, I think, but I'm also watching The Clone Wars. And I've liked Star Wars, but I never took the time to really philosophically think about Star Wars, right? Because it's primarily a space Western, But the Clone Wars is really interesting to see how the Republic, there's some deep flaws within the Republic, and how it starts to fall apart. Obviously, with the help of the Separatists, which at this point in the storyline, we have the established Republic, which has been around for 1,000 years, far too long for a Republic to be around, I think. And then the Separatists who want to leave the Republic and do their own thing, and the Republic doesn't want them to. And so that's where the conflict lies. But the Republic, these clones that they created are humans that they grow in batches and forced to fight for them. Yeah, that's problematic to say the least.
Definitely.
So there's a lot of animosity and resentment growing towards the end, growing towards the Jedi. And so it's just interesting to see that. You see Anakin Skywalker develop into Darth Vader. That shouldn't be a spoiler for anybody.
Right.
And you see Chancellor Palpatine, change and become the emperor of the empire. So it's very, very cool to watch and see those things develop.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. Well, George Lucas was the student of Joseph Campbell. And so Star Wars is based kind of on Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey.
Oh.
I don't know if you know who Joseph Campbell was.
No, I'd never heard that.
Oh, he taught mythology and philosophy, I think, and maybe ethics even. But he had studied myths from all over the globe and then taught about the similarities among them. And so George Lucas was one of his students, and Joseph Campbell developed The Hero's Journey. And it's it's like a circular thing where a lot of the stories, like Harry Potter goes through the hero's journey. Of course, Luke Skywalker goes through it, where he is an orphan or he is it's a character who's called on to do something that they don't think that they can do, but they're forced into it. And then as they grow into their role, they become more and more confident, and they have a mentor. The mentor dies at some point. So, of course,
Obi-Wan Kenobi, yeah.
Yes, Obi-Wan and Dumbledore dies. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, Dumbledore died. And I was like, well, it's the hero's journey, you guys, I guess they didn't know about Joseph Campbell. And so, and then he has to find, or she has to find their own way and decide who they're going to be. So, Joseph Campbell said George Lucas was his best student. So all of the Star Wars things are kind of based on that idea of the hero's journey. And Barry and I watched The Mandalorian, both seasons of The Mandalorian, but we haven't watched The Clone Wars, so we'll have to watch that. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, the one thing that kept me away from it for so long was that it's CGI and isn't live action. So, I'm not the biggest fan of that. It's a little awkward to watch sometimes, but I'm getting used to it, and the storyline for me is good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a big animation fan either, except that we do love like Toy Story and all the ones that Pixar does. We love those. Yeah, so I don't know how Clone Wars stacks up against that, but we do want to watch that one too at some point. So yeah, we're big sci-fi fans, at least movies. I'm not I don't always read the sci-fi books, but it's I read Dune and I've read some other sci-fi, but yeah, the movies or television shows are more my thing. We love Star Trek too. So
sure. With Dune, what I had to do was read the book, watch the movie, and then read the book again.
Yes. Yes.
But I think I like short stories, especially sci-fi short stories. You were talking about what books, I like or whatever that got me hooked on stories. And The Lottery is one of those, which is a futuristic dystopia tale. And then The Black Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin. Really, really well written. And I have a book of short stories of hers.
Are you talking about the left
hand of darkness? Yes, I'm sorry. I told you I'm horrible with names. God.
No, that's okay. Because that was the very first Ursula Le Guin I ever read, because a writer friend loved it so much. And so I went and got that. And it's an excellent story. And I have to say that Ursula Le Guin is teaching at Portland State when I was getting my master's there, and I never took any classes from her. What was I thinking?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I should have taken some.
Yeah, she's great. And I love to read sci-fi, but honestly, I also like Clive Cussler, who is not the most literary recognized author, but his books are so easy to read and they're action packed. And if I need to get my mind off of something, I turn to Clive every time.
Oh, yes. Action. Those are action books. Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, his books are very formulaic, I will say, but I really enjoy them. And they get my imagination kicking into high gear.
Yes. Now, Barry and I saw, what was the one that they made into a movie?
Sahara.
Yeah, Sahara. Does he have those same characters in all of his books, or do they have different characters in every book?
So his main character, well, first of all, I'll say I never saw Sahara, but his main character is Dirk Pitt. That's his name. But then he has these Kurt Austin books, a series called the Kurt Austin series. And then there's the Fargos, Sam and Raimi Fargo, I think. So he branched out a little bit, and I'm not sure. I can't remember who's in Sahara.
Dirk.
Oh, it was Dirk. Yeah. And then as the books go, Dirk ages and he has children, and then his children become the focal points of the story.
Oh.
Yeah. I thought it was really good, really well done.
That's interesting. We liked it so much because we really like Matthew McConaughey, and that was so he plays Dirk. And then, oh gosh, who plays his sidekick, who is so funny?
Oh, yeah. Is it Sam?
I think so, yeah, but I can't think of the actor's name, but he was so funny. And of course, Penelope Cruz is really great too. So she played that WHO doctor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know why I haven't seen it. I need to make an effort, I suppose, since I am I consider myself a fan of Clive Cussler. And I haven't read the book either, and I don't know why I haven't done that. I've read a ton of his books. I had to start tracking them so I wouldn't read them twice accidentally.
My mom does that sometimes. She'll read a book and she'll go, oh, I already read this book. She doesn't keep a log. I do not keep a log either, but I've only done that once where I read a book and I went, I think I already read this book. But my mom's 88, so maybe when I get to be 88, I'll start rereading books and then I'll realize that I've already read it. Oh, yes.
Well, it'll be like visiting an old friend.
That's right. I don't reread books very often. So, yeah, you're right. Yeah. It will be because I watch movies over and over again.
Yeah, I've done that a lot, and I've missed things, in the first time I've seen it, and been grateful to see it a second or third time. Absolutely.
Yes, really. I like that too. So, well, do you have any recommendations for people who are listening? Books or movies or television shows?
Yeah, I posted on this writers group in Facebook asking for recommendations just yesterday, and I've gotten so many good ones. And I started reading She by Haggard, I think is the name of the author. And he also wrote King Solomon's Mines.
Yes.
So I read the introductions to both of those books, and he just captures you right away. I really like that. He grabs your attention in the introduction and makes you want to read the rest of the book.
King Solomon's Mines was made into a movie. So was she, I think. Yeah. But that's a good, those are both good adventure books.
Yes. Yeah, you can see a theme there where I really like action adventure books.
And stories. Yeah. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, any others?
Check out my podcast.
Yes, that's right.
And you'll get all kinds of recommendations. You won't even have to read it. You can just listen to it in the car when you're driving back and forth to work.
That's right. It'll be like an audiobook. That's right. Yeah. Yeah,
it essentially is. I add a little bit of commentary, not a whole lot. With Treasure Island, I should have done this with Moby Dick, but I didn't. So with Treasure Island, I read ahead, obviously, and plan a little bit. And I look for words that, especially nautical terms and pirate terms and things like that. And I try to explain them before we get into that chapter so that the reader, or the listener in this case, will know what Lewis Stevenson is saying when he says that.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, you're going to have fun with Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. I've read it already recently twice, and so I'm looking forward to putting it on in digital format and putting it out there for everyone to listen to.
Yes. Now, about how long do you have each episode? Is it just one chapter?
No. I try to keep it about an hour. And normally that takes more than one chapter, although one chapter 54 in Moby Dick, is more than an hour, I think.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
But so Melville, I was looking up, things about Melville, and what he said about that book was, if you're going to write a book about a Leviathan subject, you need to write a Leviathan of a book. And that's what he did.
Really? Well, it's sort of, I don't know how many pages it was, but it sort of sounds like I'm into classic British literature. And George Eliot, I don't know what her real name was, but she wrote a book called Middlemarch, and it's probably around 800, 900, maybe 1,000 pages. And the first third of the book is describing the town and the people in the town and their relationships to each other and so on and so forth. And so a lot of people start reading it and they go, when are we going to get to the story? But I had seen the miniseries maybe on A&E or a Masterpiece Theater. And I loved it so much, and I already kind of knew what was going on. So when I started reading it, it was, oh, okay, yeah, this makes sense. But I already knew how it was going to end, and but people who haven't seen the miniseries, I think they find it daunting, that story.
Yeah. That would be hard to get through. And that's why I've never read Moby Dick, because the first part of it, like the first couple of chapters, are really interesting because Ishmael goes through the town of Nantucket and he meets people, and you meet the town through that, and that's quite interesting. But then there's chapters on cetology and that the study of whales, and Melville describes whales' physical structure and all of this, their mating habits and everything is not what you would expect the book like that to be.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I heard that he did that, and I had read when I was a teenager and early 20s, I read several James Michener, and he does that. He has these long descriptions of things. And after a while, I think it was when I got to Hawaii, I couldn't read any. I couldn't finish reading that book because he had so much description of the island and the flora and fauna and the weather and all this stuff. It was like, I just want to get to the story. Could you please just get to the story? Which in Middlemarch, it is part of the story because you're getting to know the characters and so on and so on, and their relationships and stuff. But yeah, so anyway.
You mentioned Hawaii, and that made me think of a trip I made while I was in the military, and I started reading Misery by Stephen King in the airplane trip down. Mm-hmm. And we were going to El Salvador Air Force. We were going to work with the Salvadoran Air Force. Mm-hmm. And normally I think of other evening activities to do when I'm out and about in a new city. But that book grabbed my attention that as soon as I got off work, I went back to my hotel room and started reading Misery until I finished it. It was such a good book. So that's another good recommendation.
Yes. The only Stephen King that I have read so far is The Stand. But I would like to read Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile. I would like to read those.
I haven't read them. I've of course seen the movies, but I would recommend Misery. It's a little frightening, not in the horror sense, but they made it into a movie with Kathy Bates and James Caan, and it's really about obsession and control. Well,
Stephen King is really good at those kind of themes.
Yeah, absolutely, and just he puts me in the place of the author, who is trapped there and helpless, and just at the mercy of a complete stranger who's obviously dealing with some issues that she's not working through.
Definitely. Oh, my goodness. Yes, really. Stephen King, another good recommendation. Yes, good. Well, Ken, this has been so fun. Do you have anything else you want to say before we say goodbye?
No, I just want to say thank you. And it's been fun for me too. And I can't wait till we can start working together again and put on a show for the great people of Cochise County.
Yes, it'll be fantastic. And thank you for being my guest. It was fun.
You're welcome anytime, listen. And it's good talking to you again.
I hope you enjoyed the show. If you like what you heard, please share it with a friend and give us a review on your favorite podcast app. It will help people find us. You'll find the show notes for this episode at my website, Sage Woman Chronicles, at sagewoman.life. You can leave a comment there. And remember, as Philip Pullman said, after nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing we need most in the world. Until next time, this is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden. Thanks for listening.